rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Amen. Morning, members. The House is now in session. All righty. Members, the minutes of the May 5th have been circulated. Are there any amendments or corrections? There are none. The minutes will be confirmed as printed. Messengers from the governor? There are none. Announcements from the speaker? Members, we've been notified by the following members of their absence today. Opposition leader will be absent. MP Crystal Caesar, MP Wayne Keynes, and MP Anthony Richardson. We appreciate the acknowledgement that they've sent to make us aware of their absence. Messengers from the Senate. There are none. Papers and other communications. There are none. Petitions. There are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. This morning, members, we have 9 statements on the order paper. The first is in the name of the Premier. Premier, would you like to present your statement at this time?
Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members will be aware that the overseas territories heads of government make an annual trek to London to convene in a political council setting to discuss various matters with United Kingdom government ministers, including the Foreign Secretary, the Right Honorable James Cleverly. Mr. Speaker, this Joint Ministerial Council is the highest political forum between the United Kingdom government and governments of the overseas territories, or JMC, is usually preceded by a meeting of the leaders only under the auspices of the United Kingdom Overseas Territories Association, a body with rotated political chairmanship and supported by the UK representatives of the territories. Uniquely, this year's meetings took place in the wake of the coronation of Their Majesties the King and Queen, which I, with the governor, was present. Mr. Speaker, the spectacle was witnessed by millions through various media, now available 70 years after the last such occasion, and His Majesty is to be congratulated for overt efforts in making the ancient ceremony more reflective of the United Kingdom of today. Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom Overseas Territories Association Political Council meeting afforded the territories leaders the opportunity to consolidate the remaining positions to be taken in the JMC the following day, and likewise provided an update on the work of the association during the previous year. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will be aware that the Right Honorable Lord Zach Goldsmith has been appointed as the United Kingdom's Minister for the Overseas Territories. And prior to the formal start of the JMC, we engaged in a bilateral with him and his officials in the company of the governor. Honorable members will have seen the media coverage of that meeting, and I'm pleased to advise this Honorable House that the session was useful. The bilateral provides a leader the opportunity to canvass those issues unique to the respective territory, and I can confirm that the principal issues raised included the United Kingdom's position on the ongoing issue of beneficial ownership, the United Kingdom's position on Bermuda's cannabis legislation, and the extension of international treaties to Bermuda, including the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as treaties and protocols related to intellectual property, trademarks, and patents. The minister was keen to emphasize his commitment to working with the overseas territories as part of the UK family, and, at the direction of the Prime Minister, had agreed a designation of a lead minister on overseas territories matters within each United Kingdom government department across Whitehall, to ensure a coordinated cross-departmental approach to United Kingdom's relationship with overseas territories, mirroring the official response of the Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office to overseas territories issues. Mr. Speaker, a genuine leading interest in the OTs has been taken by the Speaker of the United Kingdom House of Commons, the Right Honourable Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who is a fearless advocate for the rights of members in the Commons, and he has brought that same energy to a relationship with the overseas territories, evidence in establishing an office for the overseas territories in Parliament, including the gesture of installing a pair of stained glass windows at the entrance of the Speaker's official residence bearing the crests of the overseas territories and Crown dependencies. Mr. Speaker, beyond the gracious hospitality of the United Kingdom's House of Commons Speaker, his office kindly facilitated a United Kingdom's Overseas Territories Association Parliament Conference of 2 panel sessions entitled Overseas Territories, Environmental Superpower, and Overseas Territories, Our People, Our Future. The environmental panel featured compelling accounts of the impact of climate change on all overseas territories and magnified the importance of a clear strategy to mitigate these issues and aid the preservation of diverse, delicate ecosystems found in the overseas territories. It should be no surprise that around 90% of the United Kingdom's biodiversity resides in the United Kingdom's overseas territories and are home to 94% of British endemic species. Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to participate on the second panel and with other panelists canvass the nature of the functional relationship between the United Kingdom and the overseas territories and the interests of some OTs in structuring a different arrangement leading to full Commonwealth status. Mr. Speaker, prior to the formal JMC commencement and the interests of maximizing the time in London, I was pleased to attend a Bermuda Society breakfast briefing with Gold members represented by Friends of Bermuda and Bermudians based in the United Kingdom and working with local law firms or insurance companies. This intimate setting provided an engaging and informative exchange, confirming the ongoing success of these industries owing to their Bermuda presence and the conducive atmosphere for the growth of the industry. We highlighted the value and engagement with the Bermuda Society provide Bermudian students with opportunities. Mr. Speaker, on Thursday, the 11th of May, the Joint Ministerial Council formally commenced, and over the next 2 days, the Council was favored with addresses from the Prime Minister via video message, the Right Honourable James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary in person, and a visit from His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, all of whom spoke of the importance of the overseas territories to the United Kingdom. As the final communique notes, the issues covered were broad and reflect the serious matters with which overseas territories are consumed with the governing of a unique set of small jurisdictions with diverse populations and diverse constitutional structures. Mr. Speaker, perhaps the highlight of this time in London for me was the annual London Office Student Dinner, which is hosted by premiers to engage Bermudians studying in the UK or those who have recently graduated. This event was well attended and featured a brisk Q&A followed by an informal dinner. It was immensely inspiring to be in the company of Bermuda's bright future, represented by the diverse and vibrant young people at the dinner. Mr. Speaker, their courses of study range from public health to law, finance, political science, fashion, and engineering. It was a pleasure to host them and hear their plans for the future, which thankfully do include Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the Joint Ministerial Council is a paradox, which sees a clash of 2 worlds. In the well-appointed and historic confines of the Foreign Office, in rooms where world history was made in the name of the British Empire, now sit the leaders of what remains of that institution, small islands debating modern issues like climate change, economic resilience, the migration of peoples, and sustainable development. There was a constant reference to the overseas territories, a definitive part of the United Kingdom family, perhaps in recognition of the fact that there have been occasions when that has demonstrably not been the case. There appears to be an openness to engage in genuine dialogue with elected governments of the overseas territories, and that openness should be and will be met with genuine engagement on our part. The nature of our existing constitutional relationship makes it necessary for us to work together and on behalf of the government and people of Bermuda and in the best interest of those whom we serve. This is a necessary commitment reiterated to the UK government as part of this annual Joint Ministerial Council. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. The next statement is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning to members of the legislature and the listening public. I rise today to inform the Honorable House of the importance of continuing need to protect Bermuda's mangroves. I will start with an interesting fact. Bermuda is the most northerly point on Earth where mangroves grow, thanks to the proximity of the warming waters of the Gulf Stream. These unique trees have and will play a critical role in Bermuda's past, present, and its future. Along with our endemic Bermuda cedars and palmettos, the island's mangroves were the island's first primary forests. These trees form dense coastal or pond-dense thickets and groves in low-lying salty coastal and marshy areas of the island, where their unique adaptations allow them to thrive. There are two types of mangroves in Bermuda, Mr. Speaker, the black and the red mangrove. Both types of mangroves grow in association with one another. The red mangroves tend to grow closer to and in the water with their characteristic prop roots, while the black mangroves grow more to the landward side of their habitat. Mangrove forests have been described as the richest wetland resource in Bermuda, having high levels of biodiversity, second only to coral reefs. Furthermore, the terrestrial and aquatic components of the mangrove community support complex food webs and provide a unique habitat for a variety of rare animals. In Bermuda's ponds, these include giant land crabs, green herons, killfishes, and diamondback terrapins, all of which are either native or endemic to Bermuda and protected under the Protected Species Act 2003. In Bermuda's waters, they act as a critical nursery for a whole host of Bermuda's fish species. Mr. Speaker, mangroves also act as an important line of protection against coastal erosion. As I have stated in the past in this honorable House, climate change, particularly rising sea levels, poses an outsized threat to Bermuda. This is due in part to location, size, and topography of our islands. It is also due to the recognition that the ocean which surrounds us is being disproportionately impacted by greenhouse gas emissions. The impact of this will include higher mean sea level tides. Additionally, Bermuda faces a threat of major changes to the marine ecosystem. The effects of climate change are a major threat to Bermuda, particularly the land we live on, especially low-lying areas in the west and east ends. Many of these low-lying areas are where the remains of Bermuda's historical mangrove swamps were and are located. Looking to the future, mangroves are going to continue to play an important role as a critical buffer to some of the most vulnerable low-lying areas, which will play an important part in our future climate change adaptation strategy. I look forward to updating this honorable House on this in the near future. Mr. Speaker, just turning back to mangroves, I am pleased to report that the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has recently completed an island-wide mangrove mapping project 2022, thanks to our GIS mapping specialist, Mr. Daniel Dickinson, using a combination of satellite, aerial photography, drones, and on-site ground truthing. The geographical survey estimates that Bermuda has 50.8 acres of mangroves, of which 21.4 acres are located on government-owned land, and 29.4% acres are on privately owned land. The dominant species is comprised of the red mangroves, making up 64%, black mangroves 12%, and remaining 24% is a mix of the two species. While mangroves only make up 0.004% of the island land mass, their value for biodiversity and buffers for climate change far exceed their size. In other words, mangroves punch way above their weight. With this in mind, we need to take every action to ensure that we protect this important natural asset. Mr. Speaker, while we have limited means to counteract the damage caused by nature's wrath, we can and should do our best to address human-related threats, particularly overzealous pruning or outright wanton destruction for short-sighted human-centered desires, including views, convenience, and aesthetics. In fact, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources is currently investigating a major incident on the property of an exclusive private club, which has significantly impacted large stand of protected mangroves. Mr. Speaker, in the incident I just mentioned, a group of healthy, mature red mangroves, about 20 mature species, which were 30 to 40 feet high, were cut to 4-foot stumps. Unfortunately, this was one area that the Department of Environment and Natural Resources noted as being one of the island's healthiest mangroves areas, and even increasing in size in contrast to many coastal areas. This, to me, in no way, shape, or form is considered routine maintenance. Unfortunately, Denner estimates perhaps 90% of the mangrove's ecological value is now gone. It could not have been undertaken at a worse time for the protected green heron, right in the middle of its nesting season. It will realistically take decades, Mr. Speaker, decades for these mangroves to grow back, if at all. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. I can assure you that we will be pursuing charges and penalties against the offending entity, which will also include publicly naming and shaming. Publicly naming and shaming. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to re-emphasize to the public that the red mangroves are Level 2 protected species under the Protected Species Act of 2003 and are afforded protection from willful damage, destruction, or felling under 9(1) of the Act. Under the Act, a moderate level of routine maintenance is allowed without permits. This involves minor actions which does not jeopardize the health of a protected species. Property owners are strongly advised to reach out to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for an assessment to clarify what level of maintenance they can take without a permit, and or how to request a permit if major works are needed. This advice also goes to landscapers and marine contractors. Persons who do not have the approved authorization may commit an offense, which is liable for summary conviction to a fine of $15,000 or 1 year imprisonment. Officers of the department will be happy to assist and can be reached at the telephone number of 236-4201 or via email environment@gov.bm. Mr. Speaker, in closing, there are those in our community who may think, for the sake of development, profit, or so-called progress, a lax approach should be taken to these matters. This is not the case for this government. I repeat it again. This is not the case for this government. We, as a country, have lost considerable acreage and parts of our biodiversity to numerous factors over the last century. Preserving, protecting biodiversity is now a global priority, not just a local one. Balance is necessary, even as we protect what we have. What will not be tolerated, Mr. Speaker, is unwanted, inconsiderate, unlawful desecration of our natural environment that is protected under the Protected Species Act, or any other aspect of it. The government is prepared to take the strongest, I repeat, the strongest legal action necessary to protect every aspect of Bermuda's land, sea, or air. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy. The next statement this morning is in the name of the AG. AG, would you like to present your statement?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning.
Thank you.
I'm happy to rise this morning to provide an update on the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit. Mr. Speaker, the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit, which we call the FSIU, plays an integral role in our economy. It ensures that Bermuda maintains its reputation as a cooperative jurisdiction with a robust sanctions framework to combat the circumvention of financial sanctions. I am pleased to state, Mr. Speaker, that in supporting the team's mandate, the FSIU team attended the Sanctions Forum 2023 for the UK, overseas territories, and Crown dependencies. The Sanctions Forum 2023 provided an excellent opportunity for the participants to discuss the various components of sanctions implementation and ways to strengthen effectiveness. Key presentations and discussions included the following topics: financial sanctions circumvention, asset seizure, general licensing, specific licenses, information sharing and legal gateways, financial sanctions monitoring and reporting, and financial sanctions engagement. Mr. Speaker, let me expand on a few key areas covered. With regard to the financial sanctions circumvention, the strategies used to circumvent financial sanctions tend to be the same as those employed to launder illicit finance and other forms of serious crime. Excuse me. The forum explored how CDs, Crown dependencies, and OTs can better understand how circumvention may be taking place by looking at how licenses are being used and understanding the various legal structures. This is critical for Bermuda, as it is important to have a strong and robust enforcement regime to buttress the formal implementation of the sanctions framework. With regard to general licenses, Mr. Speaker, the UK's Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation has issued general licenses in addition to specific licenses in order to protect business needs where necessary. To that end, the Sanctions Forum focused on this area and examined the various components of GL's general licenses, including the GL powers, operational framework, the GLs issued by the overseas unit, considerations for the issuance of a GL, features, and the work program. Mr. Speaker, general licenses are proving to be a key component in the sanctions regime. They allow multiple parties to undertake specified activities which would otherwise be prohibited by sanctions legislation without the need to apply for a specific license. This has been particularly important under the Russia sanctions regime. Bermuda has the distinction of being the first overseas territory to be issued a general license in October 2022. Pre-2022, there have been no general licenses issued to the overseas territories, as general licenses were used in the UK primarily to ensure entities implementing sanctions were not adversely impacted by the implementation of financial sanctions legislation, to deal with imminent or existing issues with sanctions implementation or compliance in response to a formal policy recommendation from relevant government departments, or to assist in the staged implementation of new sanctions regimes or listings, or the staged reduction in the scope of existing sanctions regimes and listings. However, as matters and the overall situation evolve, in March 2022, general licenses were used more extensively in the following ways: to enable the financial sector to exit financial relationships with Russian banks and companies in a systemic fashion, to limit the impact on UK individuals and supply chains where possible without cutting across the purpose of the financial sanctions, and where possible to align the UK's approach closely with the approach of its allies. The Sanctions Forum also provided participants information regarding potential general licenses that may be considered by the overseas institution, or unit, I should say, in the future. Mr. Speaker, lastly, let me highlight the topic of financial sanctions monitoring and reporting. This topic highlighted the importance of monitoring the value of frozen assets on an annual basis. This in turn provides the opportunity to provide any fluctuations in value which may be legitimate. Fluctuations may also be the result of sanctions breach, which will require further investigation. Furthermore, capturing such information also allows for transparency in the sanctions regime. The sanctions forum was an excellent opportunity for OTs and Crown dependencies to network. It also worked to unify processes and protocols where applicable, particularly regarding licensing, enforcement, and engagement. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also take this opportunity to provide an update on the Russia sanctions regime in Bermuda overall and our efforts to ensure effective implementation. The FSIU has been at the forefront of Bermuda's financial sanctions response to Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine. This has involved a coordinated effort with the UK authorities and at times our OT counterparts in order to ensure the most stringent financial sanctions measures in history put in place by the UK are implemented effectively in Bermuda. By way of background, Mr. Speaker, the Russia Sanctions EU Exit Regulations 2019, as extended by the Russia Sanctions Overseas Territories Order 2020 by the Russian Sanctions Regulations 2013 include financial, trade, aircraft, shipping, and immigration sanctions. These all support the purposes of discouraging Russian actions which undermine and threaten the territorial integrity, sovereignty, or independence of Ukraine. As a result of the amendments to the regime, in the last year, the UK's Russia sanctions regime comprises the most severe sanctions measures ever imposed on any major economy. I will now provide details on the prohibitions contained in the Russia sanctions regime. Mr. Speaker, financial provisions under the regime impose asset freezes on designated persons, preventing dealing with or the making available of assets owned or controlled by designated persons, as well as other financial and investment restrictions. This includes the recent prohibition on the provision of trust services to or for the benefit of certain designated persons or for the benefit of persons connected with Russia. Under the trade provisions, Mr. Speaker, exports of bans on military, aviation, space, oil refining, dual-use, energy-related, and infrastructure-related goods and technology, as well as chemical and biological weapons. This also includes technical assistance, financial services, funds, brokering services, and other services in relation to any of these goods and related technology. Mr. Speaker, I note that in particular, the trade provisions include expanded prohibitions in relation to the provision of services which enable or facilitate military activities. These span the extensive range of insurance and reinsurance services, energy-related services, infrastructure-related services, tourism-related services, internet services, certain professional and business services, which includes accounting, advertising, architectural, auditing, business and management consulting, engineering, IT consultancy and design, and public relations services. Moreover, there are also prohibitions on the export, making available supply, or delivery of luxury goods. Certain designated officials and individuals are subject to travel bans and as such will be refused leave to enter or remain in Bermuda. Russian aircraft and ships are prohibited from entering territory, airspace, and ports, and the registration of designated vessels in Bermuda is also banned. Mr. Speaker, the Russia regulations as extended contain licensing powers enabling legal persons to carry out certain prohibited activities under certain grounds. Since the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, I am pleased to note that I have issued 11 licenses under the Russia regime. These amount to 4 general licenses, 5 individual financial sanctions licenses, and 2 individual trade licenses. In summary, a summary of the general licenses issued under the Russia sanctions regime include the following. Vessels general licenses. This general license was issued on 20th October 2022, which provides regulation of the provision of technical assistance, financial services, and funds and brokering services related to vessels. With regard to legal fees general licenses, this general license was issued on 20th of December 2022, which allows for payment for the provision of legal services to a designated person under the Russia or Belarus regimes. Firms did not have to wait for a specific license before they can receive payment from these designated persons, provided that the terms of the general license are met. With regard to a Russian oil price cap, this general license was issued on 17 March 2022, which permits the supply or delivery of Russian oil and oil products by ship, as well as provision of associated services subject to the price cap's terms being met. There's another one, the wind down of trust services provided to designated persons. This general license was issued on the 21st of March 2023, which permits persons to undertake activity necessary to terminate an arrangement to provide trust services between them and a designated person, provided that the terms of the general license are met. Mr. Speaker, but for the extension of general licenses to Bermuda, local entities that would otherwise be prevented from carrying on business activities which their UK counterparts have been permitted to conduct, same by reason of UK general licenses. The FSIU continues to advocate for the extension of these permissions as needed, taking the policy position that Bermuda entities should have the same permissions as those in the UK. The regime also provides for reporting obligations in respect of asset freezes. These obligations require all relevant firms, natural and legal persons, entities, and bodies to supply the FSIU as soon as practicable with any relevant information. The precondition is that they know or reasonably suspect a person is designated or has committed offenses under the regulations where such information is received in the course of carrying on their business. Since February 2022, the FSIU has logged 139 compliance reporting forms, including notification of frozen assets totaling over $219.5 million. Mr. Speaker, the FSIU has embraced the important role in ensuring sanctions obligations are complied with in Bermuda. Thus, it is crucial for both the public and private sector to understand their sanctions obligations. The FSIU intends to expand its engagement with various sectors in order to ensure sanctions measures are implemented in an effective manner, thus increasing compliance and combating circumvention of sanctions obligations. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to commend the sanctions unit led by Ms. Renee Fogo and Mr. Lisa Simons for their untiring work today. They have steadied Bermuda's role in the regime and will continue their vigilance using all tools at their disposal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam AG.
Update.
The members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, outlined in the government's platform of 2017 were a number of commitments made that were designed to enhance the lives of our citizens. Specific to the Ministry of Public Works, the government committed to reviewing the approaches to public water supply and wastewater disposal systems. To that end, I wish to provide an update on the status of one of the initiatives of the Water and Wastewater Master Plan implementation, the establishment of regulatory oversight for the water utility sector. Mr. Speaker, a study was commissioned using the award-winning engineering consulting firm Associated Engineering International Limited to determine a long-term strategy for the parish of St. George's water and wastewater systems. The necessity of such a study was noted in the document charting our course, Sustaining Bermuda, which was developed by the Sustainable Development Unit within the Cabinet Office. One of the action points specifically states that a 20-year strategy was needed to ensure that the island's future water needs were adequately met. The study report entitled Strategy for Sustainable Water and Wastewater Servicing St. George's Parish was completed in February 2018 and provided conclusions and recommendations on the governance, policy, and servicing strategies for the public water supply and wastewater disposal sectors. Number one, Mr. Speaker, the wastewater treatment plants discharge into the ocean. Our local wastewater treatment plants are discharging minimally treated sewage through two outfalls operated by the two respective municipalities. While one is currently being decommissioned through the Bermuda Land Development Company's water and wastewater infrastructure project, which I last updated this Honorable House on December 2nd, 2022. Mr. Speaker, the larger second outfall located off Hungry Bay and fed from the Front Street wastewater treatment plant remains in operation by the Corporation of Hamilton. This site discharges wastewater and occasionally grease into the Atlantic Ocean. When easterly winds blow, grease balls can form and wash up on shore beaches. In addition to impacting the aesthetic value of the beaches, grease balls are also a potential public health risk. While the Corporation of Hamilton has attempted to mitigate this issue by implementing a fats, oils, and grease policy in 2015, replaced its wastewater filtering screens, and hired a retired health inspector to work with restaurants to enforce the use and regular cleaning of grease traps, more investments are needed for equipment improvements. Number two, Mr. Speaker, Bermudians do not get as much water as they would like when rainfall is low. As we all are aware, Bermuda gets most of its water from rain harvesting, with piped and truck water supplementing demand. The rainwater harvesting has functioned well for over 400 years. The current method has been and will continue to be impacted by climate change. Climate change is expected to lead to more severe storms and longer dry spells in Bermuda. Though total rainfall is likely to increase, it will be in the form of more severe storms and hurricanes, which can contaminate household tanks with salt water. During dry spells, household tanks are depleted and the demand for trucked water spikes, which has led to rationing in some cases. Number three, Mr. Speaker, the risk of us consuming unsafe water by customers and tenants. The monitoring of piped and truck water quality is not consistent across all providers. Some are very conscientious and follow best practices, while others are not so reliable. The Department of Health does what it can with the resources available with regard to a drinking water quality monitoring program. However, currently, water testing is usually done on a voluntary basis or in response to specific complaints from customers. This creates a risk that customers could consume unsafe water, as it is difficult for them to evaluate the quality of the drinking water by themselves. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, if residents drink tank water that is unfiltered, it exposes the individual to potential health risks. Homeowners are ultimately responsible for the quality of the water in their tanks. To measure their drinking water quality, they can have their water tested by the Department of Health and private labs for bacterial and salt content, although no labs in Bermuda offer chemical testing. However, it is more difficult for tenants in rental housing to assess the safety of the water they drink. And number four, Mr. Speaker, possible price gouging and lack of incentives to keep costs low. In any free market, competition between sellers helps keep costs low. When there is little or no competition, businesses are less likely to provide efficient services at the lowest cost possible, justifying the use of regulation to determine a price that is fair to both buyers and sellers. Unlike water utilities in other countries, large public and private service providers in Bermuda are not subject to economic regulation. Mr. Speaker, locally, private providers set their own prices, since these companies are selling a basic daily need in a market without competitors. There is the risk that private service providers could charge prices far above their cost of service. Just to be clear, the government is not accusing any company in the current market of price gouging. It is just a possibility that may occur in the future, resulting from climate change and drought periods. In addition, without competition, service providers are less likely to provide high-quality service and expand coverage to less profitable areas. For example, if public providers cannot charge what it costs to provide services, there is a risk that they may postpone maintenance or infrastructure investments, reducing the quality of service. And Mr. Speaker, these four, amongst other problems in Bermuda's water sector, as well as potential future risks, could lead to negative public health and environmental outcomes. These problems and risks may also contribute to higher costs for Bermudian households and businesses. In addition, they could jeopardize the country's reputation as a premier vacation destination and an attractive location for global business. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the Cabinet authorized the establishment of a working steering committee under the responsibility of the Ministry of Public Works with the objective of implementing the aforementioned recommendation to establish a regulatory oversight body for the water sector. Mr. Speaker, to assist in this initiative in 2021, the Ministry of Public Works retained the international water consulting firm Castalia LLC to contribute in the development of a regulatory framework to address Bermuda's water needs for the foreseeable future. This exercise also included a review of similar countries and how their water sectors are organized and regulated. Mr. Speaker, in September and October 2022, public consultation began for the possible establishment of regulatory oversight for the water sector to ensure sustainable water management for Bermuda's future. Through workshops with key stakeholders, online posts on the Bermuda Citizens Forum, social media events, radio interviews, and other outreach channels to determine their view of the state of the industry to help guide regulation moving forward. Arising out of this, the government has identified certain current and future risks concerning the industry. Mr. Speaker, these risks were then analyzed by Castalia and technical officers, whom then incorporated the results to form the basis for a second round of consultation, which commenced on January 23rd, 2023, and is ongoing. Currently, outreach for this second round of consultation include 1, in-depth one-on-one consultations with key stakeholders, 2, an information booth that was located at the agricultural exhibition between the 27th and 29th of April, 2023, another Facebook Live event scheduled for May 30th, and a post on the Citizens Forum at forum.gov.bn, which is open until May 31st, which includes the public consultation documents for feedback and comments by the public. This second round of consultation ends on the 31st of May, and we welcome all feedback on this important initiative. The results from both consultation periods will be taken into consideration when designing the recommended regulatory framework for Bermuda. The recommendation will address each of the risks identified through the consultation process. Mr. Speaker, this government believes in protecting our residents and Bermuda's international reputation by reducing the health risks associated with the basic need. Without appropriate regulation, oversight, and anticipating future needs, we could not ensure a healthy population nor a healthy environment. Mr. Speaker, as always, I will keep this honorable House and the people of Bermuda informed as we progress. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Tourism and Cabinet officers. Minister, would you like to present your statement now?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to share the first quarter tourism measures with this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will be aware that the Bermuda Tourism Authority has reported incremental growth in visitor numbers for the first quarter of 2023, signaling continued recovery in the industry. Our air leisure visitors were up 88% over the same period in 2022, with the arrival of 13,507 visitors. There were no cruise arrivals in 2021 or during the first quarter period in 2022. However, there were 13 calls in quarter one of 2023, and those 13 calls generated 22,784 visitors. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, total leisure visitors, cruise and air, totaled 36,291, an increase of 405%. What's more, Mr. Speaker, estimated total expenditure by visitors, air visitors, was $36.2 million, and by cruise visitors was $5.3 million, leading to a combined total of more than $41 million, a year-over-year increase of almost $20 million, or 92%. Mr. Speaker, As expected, vacation and leisure visiting 55%, followed by business visitors contributing 28%. There was also growth in the visiting friends and relatives category, contributing 13% of the arrivals during the period. Mr. Speaker, data continues to show the strength of the U.S. as our primary visitor source. 62% of our total air visitors came from the U.S. during the period. Canada contributed 15% and the U.K. contributed 12% of our air arrivals. The remaining 11% was split between Europe, the Caribbean, Asia, and the rest of the world. Mr. Speaker, the average length of stay for business and leisure air visitors was 5 and 6 days respectively, and 13 days for those visiting friends and relatives. Mr. Speaker, our air capacity during the period was 73,175 seats, which was up 9.9% over the same period in 2022. Our air partners sold 54,288 of those seats to arriving passengers, which is inclusive of residents, representing a total load factor of 74.2%. Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of the air arrivals, or 68%, stayed in our hotels, while 7% stayed in vacation rental properties. Others stayed in a combination of boats, yachts, private homes, or with friends and relatives. Hotel occupancy was 45.6%, while vacation rental occupancy was recorded at 57.5%. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall the tracking of the economic impact from super yachts expanded in 2022 to include all yachts. During the period, yacht arrivals increased by 13.6%, a total of 25 arrivals versus 22 in the previous years. The economic impact from yachts was recorded as 1.72 million, a 164% increase compared to the last year. Mr. Speaker, the first quarter measures bode well for the revival of our tourism sector. In the first quarter of the year, the Bermuda Tourism Authority has been actively focused on igniting new relationships and implementing creative advertising strategies to promote the island. Notably, they became the first destination marketing organization to utilize 3D billboards situated in New York's bustling Times Square, effectively capturing the attention of the passerby. Mr. Speaker, their successful Lost Yet Found campaign has garnered widespread recognition, showcasing the authenticity of the island and its unique offerings. Mr. Speaker, to further engage visitors, the authority hosted a range of captivating events, including restaurant weeks, the Celebrity Golf Invitational, and Spa Month, providing unforgettable experience for travelers. Furthermore, the sales team has been dedicatedly working to reestablish business connections and attract new opportunities. Mr. Speaker, the government looks forward to the renewed growth and development in the sector as we work with the BTA, BHA, and other key industry partners to stimulate hotel development, secure increased airlift, maintain cruise ship partnerships, and implement programs to ensure an exceptional visitor experience for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Labor, of Economy and Labor. Minister, would you like to put your statement now?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to rise today to share with members of this honorable House fourth quarter economic results. Mr. Speaker, quarterly GDP and economic performance for Bermuda's economy continues to expand and show resilience. The Ministry of Finance estimated that the economy in 2022 would have grown by 3.4% to 3.9% in 2022. Quarterly GDP figures reflect a strong trend in that direction. The quarterly GDP estimates indicate that the economy has expanded by at least 5.9% in nominal terms in 2022. In real terms, the inflation-adjusted economy is estimated to have grown by at least 2.9% in 2022. Real GDP in the first quarter of 2022 has been revised upwards from a 5.2% increase to a 5.7% increase. second quarter GDP has been revised upwards from a reported 3.9% increase to a 6.8% increase. And the 5% contraction in the third quarter has been revised to a 2.9% contraction in quarterly GDP. In the fourth quarter of 2022, the economy returned to positive quarterly growth. After adjusting for inflation, the GDP in constant prices increased by 2.4% in the fourth quarter of 2022. The level of economic expansion was a direct result of increased household expenditure and growth in the export of goods and services. GDP in corn prices increased by 5.6% during the fourth quarter. Mr. Speaker, consumer spending in the fourth quarter increased 4.5% year over year to $795.2 million. Consumption of services increased 6.1% year over year, reflected in higher expenditure for accommodation services, air transport, and catering services. Spending on durable goods rose 4.8% due largely to increased expenditure on furniture and furnishings, information processing equipment, and motorcycles. Mr. Speaker, employment income in the fourth quarter was 7.3% above 2021 levels. Industries such as hotels, restaurants, international business, transport, and communication reported strong growth in employee remuneration. The results for government expenditures showed that consumption declined 2.6% during the fourth quarter, with lower expenditure on equipment, rentals, and salaries. Mr. Speaker, with respect to business investment, we report that gross capital formation declined 3.5% to $208.9 million. Investment related to construction fell 1.4%, while investment in machinery and equipment decreased 5.5% due to lower imports of agricultural machinery, office furniture, and equipment, and industrial machine parts. Mr. Speaker, the fourth quarter balance of payments indicates that Bermuda's trade with non-residents resulted in a $161 million surplus for the fourth quarter of 2022, down $64 million from a year ago. Services transactions realized a surplus of $45 million, narrowing $43 million year over year. The decrease in the surplus balance reflected decrease in the business service account and transportation account balance. The surplus on Bermuda's primary income account rose $12 million to $494 million, due mainly to increase in net employee compensation. Further, Mr. Speaker, reports show that the fourth quarter international investment position for the stocks of foreign assets held by Bermudan residents above its stocks of foreign liabilities increased by an estimated $4.3 billion. The net IIP increased by $569 million for the third quarter of 2022. Mr. Speaker, total business registrations increased by 0.8% year over year, bringing the complete business registers to 16,103. There were 132 new business registered in Bermuda during the fourth quarter of 2022. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the government continues to facilitate the expansion and sustainability of Bermuda's economy by creating a business environment which allows businesses to thrive. With this, within the coming weeks, the government will be releasing an economic development strategy for Bermuda. The economic development strategy will provide a strategic framework that will guide Bermuda to sustainable economic growth and development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, I believe the next statement is also in the name of the same minister. Minister, would you like to continue?
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share the government's continued efforts to provide invaluable opportunities for the next generation of workers. I am pleased to inform this honorable House that the Department of Workforce Development Summer Employment Program has increased the number of students placements available from 130 to 180 spaces for the 2023 program. This increase is in direct alignment with Goal 1 and 2 of the government's Youth Employment Strategy, which speaks to increasing opportunities for local training and expanding career support for young people from high school through to early employment. Mr. Speaker, summer student placement provides an excellent opportunity for young Bermudians to gain practical experience in a range of fields, while also contributing to the work of our government and the community. These placements are an investment in our future workforce, and I am thrilled that we are able to offer these opportunities to even more young Bermudians. We recognize the importance of these placements, not only for the students who participate, but also for the departments and agencies who benefit from the fresh perspectives and innovative ideas these students bring to the workplace. By expanding the number of summer student placements, we are creating more opportunities for collaboration and growth. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Workforce Development offers two distinct programs designed for students at varying levels in their academic careers. The University and College Student Summer Employment Program provides college students with 10 weeks of work experience with a weekly stipend of $600. The program's objectives are to provide meaningful work experience, offer exposure to careers and employment opportunities within the government, create opportunities to gain leadership and decision-making skills, and encourage citizenship and service. Additionally, the program aims to introduce participants to career and employment competency standards and to foster the development of career goals by connecting work experience to academic learning. In 2022, the program received a budget allocation of $450,000 and accommodated 80 students. This year, the department has reallocated $134,000 to support an additional 20 placements, making it possible for up to 100 college and university students to participate. For the high school student summer internship program, the number of placements has increased by 60% from 50 to 80, increasing the budget from $80,000 to $116,000. This program provides young people aged 15 to 18 with practical and meaningful experience in a safe, structured, and professional environment mentored while being coached by proprietors and business managers in both the private and public sectors. Students will be afforded a work shadow experience in their career interests for 4 weeks during the month of July and will be paid a stipend of $1,600 upon completion of the work experience. Mr. Speaker, the aims and objectives of these two programs vary, as the distinction between the two programs is important given the age demographic unique to the two groups. It is important to note that the Department of Workforce Development intends to reallocate $170,000 to accommodate the increase in student placements for the 2023 Summer Employment Program. Mr. Speaker, I am grateful to the government departments, private sector partners, and personnel who have provided our young people with such rich and meaningful summer experiences. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to all of our industry partners who continue to work with us in support of our young people. Mr. Speaker, I would like to encourage the business community to consider extending summer employment and internships to our young people this year. It is crucial to provide our young people with opportunities for meaningful work experience so that they, in turn, will become productive citizens within our community. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to seeing the positive impact these programs will have on the lives and careers of the young.
Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister for Social Development and Seniors. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this morning I rise to inform this honorable House that the month of May is recognized as Foster Care Month, not just in Bermuda, but throughout the United States. Each year, the Department of Child and Family Services has taken the opportunity to publicly recognize the important role that foster parents, kinship parents, and foster care workers play in supporting our children and their families. This year's theme for Foster Care Awareness Campaign is Foster Bermuda's Future. Mr. Speaker, with this in mind, a number of activities have been scheduled during the month of May to both celebrate and enhance the government's foster care program. First, I will focus on the professional training that was held during the first week of May, in which the Department of Child and Family Services hosted a 3-day kinship care training initiative and facilitated an invited facilitator Ms. Zelma Smith Presley from the United States to conduct customized training for the Bermuda foster care team, specifically geared to the sensitive, delicate intricacies of kinship care. Mrs. Smith Presley is a child welfare consultant and trainer with over 45 years of experience in the field of child welfare. Mrs. Smith Presley delivered the Caring for Our Own program that centers around the full dynamics of what it means to become responsible for looking after one's relatives with the added support of the Department of Child and Family Services, which is referred to as kinship caregiving. She delivered 2 sets of training, first to staff and then to kinship caregivers. Mr. Speaker, let me explain what a kinship caregiver is. The word kin refers to any relative by blood, by marriage, or adoption with close family ties. In turn, a kinship caregiver reflects the full-time nurturing and protection of children who must be separated from their parents by relatives, godparents, step-parents, or other adults who have a kinship bond with the children. In essence, kinship care is defined as out-of-home foster care provided by a relative. Kinship placement of children enables them to live with persons they know and trust. The kinship placement reduces the trauma associated with living with persons who initially are unknown, and such placement supports the transmission of a child's family identity, culture, and ethnicity, and strengthens the ability of families to give children the support they need. Mr. Speaker, as of December 2022, the foster care program and the Department of Child and Family Services have had 26 children in kinship placement. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I was very intentional to attend the first day of the 3-day kinship professional training held on Wednesday, May 3rd. The overseas facilitator, Ms. Smith Presley, engaged the full foster care team of 10 officers in knowing and understanding the various best practice methods for managing kinship care cases while making professional considerations for the ongoing intra-family dynamics. The training provided staff with greater insight into the curriculum that they will later use to facilitate training for future kinship caregivers. Key specific outcomes for staff who participated in this first day of professional training included being able to effectively support kinship families who have children placed in their homes, identifying the benefits and challenges of using kinship placements from the perspective of children, the birth parents, and caregivers, and identifying some of the emotions and life changes that kinship families experience in caring for children placed in their homes. Mr. Speaker, for a variety of reasons, some of our children cannot remain with us, and with assistance from the Department of Child and Family Services, foster parents provide a trusting connection for Bermuda's foster children. As such, it is critical that foster kinship caregivers are provided with support and encouragement so that the immediate and long-term needs of children are met. Mr. Speaker, the next 2 full days of training on May 4th and 5th were dedicated to our kinship care families. They received training using a curriculum tailored for Bermuda, including specifically designed workbooks and journals. Of the 15 kinship families, 9 kinship parents participated. We appreciate the sacrifice of those kinship parents who took time from their jobs to attend the training. We thank their employers who allowed them the time off from work. The kinship caregivers had an opportunity to share their common experiences in caring for their relatives, and some of the key outcomes for the kinship caregivers were knowing how to meet the children's emotional, physical, developmental, and safety needs, how to describe the impact of trauma and adverse life experiences of children placed in their care, how to access both formal and informal services on behalf of the children, and having an ongoing informal social support network with other kinship caregivers. Mr. Speaker, all 3 days of training were informative, interactive, purposeful, and practical. The department has received overwhelmingly positive feedback from the kinship caregivers attendees at this training, and I certainly commend the foster care team under the leadership of Ms. Selena Simons, the foster care coordinator, for the vision to hold this training and further equip staff and our kinship caregivers to be the best. Mr. Speaker, our foster care promotional activities that have been implemented are upcoming during the remainder of the month of May include interviews about foster care on the government CITV station, advertising through electronic media and social media informatics promoting foster care and foster parenting. Mr. Speaker, CITV interviews with the department's foster care coordinator, Mrs. Selena Simons, who will be sharing information in three key areas. What is foster care? Why do we need foster care parents? And how does one become a foster care parent? Also, the department's foster care social worker, Ms. Simone Romaine, appears in part of What's Happening in Government series and on the Daily Hour show. The interviews with Ms. Romaine emphasize the importance and need for more foster parents. Bermuda has close to 60 foster families on the island, and some of them are caring for more than one foster child at a time. However, the Department of Child and Family Services is currently looking for foster parents who can get involved and be on standby for pending emergencies. Mr. Speaker, on Thursday, May 11th, I held a press conference to announce Foster Care Month. For those who watched, they would have seen in front of the Cabinet building a PTB bus donning a specifically designed foster parent recruitment banner across its rear windshield. These bus banners will be on display for the entire month of May, encouraging persons to be a foster parent and foster Bermuda's future. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, this week, Sunday, May 21st, the Department of Child and Family Services will be hosting its annual appreciation tea for foster parents. This event will be held at the Royal Hamilton Amateur Dinghy Club. Foster parents will be individually recognized for the sacrifice, support, and commitment that they have extended to children placed in their homes. We truly appreciate our foster parents for the role that they play in Bermuda's foster care system. The keynote speaker for the appreciation tea will be a young lady who spent time in foster care and now has graduated from university, qualifying as a special needs educator. Mr. Speaker, under the authority of the Children's Act of 1998, the Department of Child and Family Services is responsible for all child protection matters pertaining to young people ranging from newborns up to 18. As the department continues to make progressive steps to ensure the safeguarding of our children, I want to thank our foster parents, our kinship parents, and the foster care team at the Department of Child and Family Services for their valuable role that they all play in supporting Bermuda's vulnerable children and families. Also, I encourage anyone who's interested in becoming a foster parent to contact our foster care coordinator, Ms. Selena Simons at the Department of Child and Family Services at 294-5871 or email smsimons@gov.bm. Please help us foster Bermuda's future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The members, the next statement is also in the name of the same minister. Minister, would you like to present that statement?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I rise to inform my honorable colleagues and the public about the development of a national child safeguarding policy entitled Working Together to Safeguard Children, which is the guidance document for the Bermuda National Child Safeguarding Committee and sets direction for their mandate and work. Mr. Speaker, let me first provide a brief historical backdrop on the origin of developing this policy. During the Joint Ministerial Council held in 2015, it was agreed that overseas territories should lead a national response to child safeguarding to reiterate the commitment to delivering a zero-tolerance approach to child abuse in all its forms and do everything that can be done to prevent harm, support victims, and bring offenders to justice. It was also agreed that the UK government and the overseas territories would work together and prioritize the safeguarding of children. Mr. Speaker, to ensure children's needs are at the heart of child safeguarding, at the heart of the safeguarding system, and environments are created in which all children have an equal opportunity to thrive, a child-centered and coordinated approach to safeguarding children needed to be adopted. This approach requires the collaboration of multi-agencies through the sharing of information and undertaking of robust risk assessments. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the formulation of a National Child Safeguarding Committee was approved, and later in 2019, in alignment with the Section 11A of the Children's Act of 1998, under the leadership of the Honorable Kathy Lynn Simmons, JPMP, and the Ministry of Legal Affairs established a National Child Safeguarding Committee, which demonstrated Bermuda's commitment to guaranteeing a collaborative approach towards child safeguarding. Mr. Speaker, the National Child Safeguarding Committee comprises of the following members: Solicitor General, Director of Child and Family Services, Director of Court Services, Commissioner of Police, Director of Public Prosecutions, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry responsible for Child and Family Services, Commissioner of Prisons, Commissioner of Education, and the Chief Medical Officer. Recently, I appointed a representative from the Bermuda Hospitals Board, the Clinical Director of Intellectual Disabilities Program, to join the committee, Ms. Marissa Rogers. Mr. Speaker, the National Child Safeguarding Committee has three broad aims. One, to coordinate the Bermuda government's response to child safeguarding by drawing on cross-departmental knowledge, skills, and expertise through a collaborative approach and align with constitutional and legislative responsibilities. Two, to develop effective multi-agency work to safeguard children from all forms of abuse through comprehensive policies established from best practice. And three, to foster collaboration with community partners and strengthening safeguarding protections and prevention systems through a zero-tolerance approach to child abuse. However, Mr. Speaker, the overall purpose of the Child Safeguarding Committee is to develop a national plan of action. This plan of action includes making recommendations on effective mechanisms that will cause the authorities in Bermuda, such as government ministries, departments, quengos, and child-focused agencies, to function in unison and develop the needed legislation, policies, procedures, and activities to safeguard and promote the welfare of children in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the UK Foreign Commonwealth Office supported the visit of two FCO consultants to the island to share with the National Safeguarding Committee the work undertaken in the UK for child safeguarding. A mini conference for all agencies represented on the committee was held at the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute, where the consultants made several presentations. It was the information shared at this mini conference that steered the subsequent development of a national child safeguarding policy. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Solicitor General, who was acting chair of the National Child Safeguarding Committee at the time, held a series of subsequent meetings with the committee members to strategically develop a policy gathering input from all agency representatives. The Director of Public Prosecutions, who was then acting as legal advisor to the Attorney General, collated all the information from committee members and structured what is now the first ever National Child Safeguarding Committee policy for Bermuda, entitled Working Together to Safeguard Children. Mr. Speaker, the policy is structured around three broad objectives: to strengthen the legislative framework, to strengthen the collaborative framework, and to strengthen the community protection framework. Each of these frameworks comprises specific recommendations to amend legislation or for the committee to implement and or execute activities collaboratively to safeguard and promote the well-being of our children in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the National Safeguarding Policy will place Bermuda in a better position when we have to report on compliance with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Mr. Speaker, the Child Safeguarding Policy will be placed on the ministry's website at www.gov.bm. As such, I encourage my honorable colleagues, the general public, and the community at large to read the policy, Working Together to Safeguard Children. We must all be agents of change and be proactive in preventing our children from all forms of abuse. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I extend my sincere thanks to the Child Safeguarding Committee members for their diligence in working collaboratively to bring this policy to fruition. The government of Bermuda remains steadfast in providing our children with the protections that are necessary to safeguard them so that they feel safe and can flourish to become productive members of our community. The future of our island is dependent on our children, so let's work together to safeguard them now for their future destinies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to a close of the ministerial statements this morning. We will now move on to the next item, which is reports of committees. There are none, which now takes us to the question period. This morning, members, along with questions that have been created from the statements that were given this morning, we have a series of written questions as well. And we'll start with the written questions and then move on to questions from the statements. The first written question this morning is from MP Dunkley to the Premier. He has two written questions. I've already acknowledged to he and Premier that the first written question is subject to Standing Order 17.5G9 with IX 9, which indicates that the information has already been available to this House in a prior sitting. So we'll not have that question this morning, but MP Dunkley, you're quite welcome to put your second question. And the clock starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I believe you said written question, just clarification.
Yeah, it's
Oral.
the written question by oral responses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question to the Honorable Premier, will the Honorable Minister please provide this Honorable House the rationale for making the advisor role an unpaid position? And that refers to the FinTech advisor role, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the particular advisor in question asks for the contract to be amended to an unpaid arrangement.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate the answer, it really is not a full answer in itself. There must be some reason why the Honorable Minister can provide on why the contracted person asked it to be put to an unpaid position. So supplementary, Mr. Speaker, was there any other arrangement with government that could have resulted in remuneration going to the individual through personally to himself or through a company, impacting that decision to make it an unpaid advisor's position?
Supplementary. Response, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member keeps referring to a decision made by the government, and I'll repeat the answer to the question which I given before, that the particular advisor in question asks for the contract to be amended to an unpaid arrangement. It is important to note, Mr. Speaker, that there are technical officers who work in the Economic Development Department, advancing matters related to fintech. The advisor in question is not the only person who works on these particular matters, but as he's referring to a decision that was made, the request came from the person to turn it to an unpaid position.
Supplementary. Yes.
Yes, thank you. What was the date of that request? When was the rationale put into effect? Thank you.
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I will seek to get that information. That was not part of the question, so I don't have an answer to that.
Okay. Second
Supplementary. Can the Premier assist roughly? What year are we talking about?
He's made a commitment to provide the information.
Grateful for the commitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Anyone have a second sub? MP Dunkley, your second sub.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, can the Honorable Premier assure this Honorable House and the people of Bermuda that the decision had nothing to do with the implementation of the travel authorization form?
Mr. Speaker, I know that the honorable member wants to engage in speculation, and I will only repeat the answer to the question. The request came from the specific advisor to the technical officer responsible for administrating and overseeing the contract, that the contract be amended to an unpaid arrangement.
Okay. MP Jackson, supplementary?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm just curious, are there any other unpaid advisors in working with the government right now?
Mr. Speaker, I can refer to the first question and the answer given, that information is already in the public domain, as they've already asked questions on that and have answers, and all those matters are in the Hansard.
Okay. The Premier has indicated that a similar question that would have provided an answer has been asked previously in the question periods, which means it's in our Hansard, and as Standing Order 17, which I quoted earlier, once a question has been, or the information has been provided here, there's no need to put the question a second time. Okay.
Thank you. I just have a supplementary.
Sure, you got a
So I'm
second
just
sub.
curious, are any of those unpaid advisors that have been publicly listed, are they still working for government?
Premier?
I am uncertain, Mr. Speaker, as to the status. I do know that Dr. Weldon was an unpaid scientific advisor in that particular role. I know that that is a matter of public record, that that is no longer the case. I do need to know the now ambassador to the UAE from the government of Barbados was an unpaid fintech advisor for the government of Bermuda, and he did resign that role upon his appointment as ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. This time, I don't believe there's any others, but I don't want to misspeak and be said that I'm misleading the House. But that's not a question that was answered, but that's the best of recollection of that I can give.
Okay. All right. No further supplementaries from anyone?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Premier, that's the first of your written questions from MP Dunkley. Premier, I also believe you have a second written question from MP Jackson, who has 3 questions in her series of questions to you this morning. MP Jackson, would you like to put your first question? And each of the 3 require oral response.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I did receive correspondence from the permanent secretary or acting permanent secretary to say that question 1 may be received in a written statement.
I think
A written answer.
the explanation was that under the first assessment, I thought it was going to be quite long and they were going to give you a written, but I believe the Premier has been able to tailor it so that he could do it as an oral response. So you get an oral response.
Thank you, Premier. My first question is to the Honorable Premier and Minister of Finance. May he please provide to this Honorable House a list of contracts or consulting positions that have been approved by the Head of Public Service from 1st of January 2022 to today. This would be inclusive of the contract amount and the company or individual the contract is with.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in answer response to this question, though the question did not ask the term of the consultancy arrangements, I will also provide that as a part of my answer for context, so persons do not take things out of context. I will begin. Richard James, Public Sector Negotiation Team, $5,000 a month, 1st of February 2022 to 31st of December 2022. Josine Harbin, Public Sector Negotiation Team, $5,000 per month, 1st of February 2022, ongoing. Stephen Todd, Public Sector Negotiation Team, $5,000 per month, 1st of February 2022, ongoing. Anthony Howell, Washington, D.C. Office Representative, $95,000, term 2nd of May 2022 to the 30th of April 2023. Kevin DaCosta, IT Support, $26.25 an hour, term 1st of January 2023 to the 31st of December 2023. Wayne Dill, IT Systems Analyst, $100 per hour, term 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of May 2022, and that contract has been extended. Patrick Grant, Teacher Training, $4,823.96 for the 24th to the 30th of October 2022. KPMG, Education Reform Unit, $150,000, 1st of April 2022 to the 29th of July 2022. Stantec, Education Reform Unit, $250,000, 1st of April 2022 to the 29th of July 2022. Dennis Pimentel, Education Reform Unit, $2,000, 1st of January 2023 to the 31st of December 2023. Aronde Walker, Policy Analyst, $9,534 a month from the 1st of February 2022 to the 30th of April 2022. Ryan Robinson, Parent Chief, Policy Analyst, $8,750 a month, 1st of June 2022 to 31st of October 2022. Derek Burgess, Cost of Living Commission, it's $1,062 per month, 1st of April 2022 to 31st of December 2022. Stack Solutions, Payroll Tax Rebate, contract amount approved by the Head of Public Service, $97,000, 1st of October 2022 to 28th of February 2023. Infolytics, Econometric Analytics, $5,000 per month, term 19th of December 2022 to the 30th of April 2023. Chardonnay Hughes, Legal Policy Advisor, $8,580 a month, 19th of December 2022 to the 30th of June 2023. Deborah Blakeney, Stamp Duty, $200 an hour, 1st of February 2022 to the 31st July 2022. Nicole Hartman, Administrative Support, Official Receiver, $36.50 an hour, 2nd of May 2022 to the 31st of December 2022. Amory Duncan, Compliance, $58 an hour, 1st of August 2022 to the 31st of January 2023. Kenlyn Swan, Compliance, $58 an hour, 2nd of May 2022 to the 31st of October 2022. Savell Thomas, Compliance, $40 an hour, 2nd of May 2022 to the 31st October 2022. Peter Souza, IT Support, $87 per hour, 2nd of May 2022 to the 1st of May 2023. Claire Fitzpatrick, Compliance, $101 an hour, 1st of July 2022 to the 30th of June 2023. Camille Walker, Legal Policy Advisor, $79 an hour, 1st of July 2022 to the 30th of June 2023. Jean Norville, Support Office of the Official Receiver, $60 per hour, 21st of June 2022 to the 20th of June 2023. Joanne Ferbert, Licensing Enforcement, $71.42 per hour, 1st of August 2022 to the 31st of October 2022. Suzanne Mayo, Licensing Enforcement, $64.28 per hour, 1st of August 2022, 31st July 2023. Lisa Mayo, Enforcement, $80.24 per hour, 1st of October 2022 to 30th of September 2023. Pradeep Ambrose, COVID Testing Analysis, $65 an hour, 1st of February 2022 to 28th of February 2022. To be confirmed, that means that no position has been or consultant has been decided, but permission has been granted by the head of the public service. And as the question was asked, approvals that were given, this is for an agronomist, $10,000 a month, January 2023 to December 2026. Ian Seymour, Independent Planning Inspector, $123.75 per hour, 1st of June 2022 to the 31st of May 2025. Danielle Wood, Environmental Vulnerability, $50,000, 21st of March 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. Anthea Simmons Wade, Office of Public Guardian, $5,000 per month, April 1st, 2022, March 31st, 2023. Carlo Corbin, Constitutional Reform, $50,000, 1st July 2022 to the 1st of October 2022. Brian Eaton, Legislative Draft Person, $100 per hour, 1st of September 2022 to 31st of August 2023. Maxine Binns, Legislative Analyst, $150 an hour, 21st November 2022 to the 20th of December 2022. Stephen Haas, Staff Training, $6,750, 9th of February 2022 to the 25th of February 2023. Takia Burgess, Acting Magistrate, $88.61 per hour, 6th of October 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. Maria Sofianos, Acting Magistrate, $86.61 per hour, 6th of October 2022, 31st of March 2023. Mark Pettingill, Acting Magistrate, $754.39 per week, 1st of August 2022, 31st July 2023. Kenlyn Swan, Acting Magistrate, $86.61 per hour, 28th of April 2022, 31st of March 2023. Hugh Southey, Assistant Justice, $1,000 per day, duration of case. Ashley Fubler, Junior Legal Aid Counsel, $6,170.80 per month, 23rd of May 2022 to the 22nd of July 2022. Roseanne Francis, Special Projects in the Ministry of National Security, $9,534.06 per month, 28th of November 2022 to the 28th of November 2023. Tanisha Fagan, Forensic Scenes of Crime Unit, $7,639 per month, 1st of October 2022 to the 30th September 2023. Andrew Jones, Intelligence Analyst, $7,639 per month, 1st of April 2022, 31st of March 2023. Malachi Simons, horticulturalist, $7,461.37 per month from the 2nd of October 2022 to the 31st of December 2022. Mark Fields, mechanical engineer, $75.90 an hour, 1st of May 2022, 31st of October 2022. Michael Murphy, project manager, $175 an hour, 1st of February 2022, 31st through to the 31st of January 2025. Clarkson Trot, solid waste, $75 per hour, 14th November 2022, 1st of April 2023. Cyberdyne, network security, $95,000, 16th of February 2023 to 15th of June 2023. Alexia Hefty, advisor, Middle East, $20,000 a month, 1st of April 2023, 31st of March 2024. Andrew Parsons, public sector negotiation team, $5,000 per month, February 23rd to December February 2023 to December 2023. JLN Franklin, concierge engagement services, $17.02 per hour, 1st of April 2023, 30th of June 2023. Dana Selassie, education reform communications, $125,000, January 31st, 2023, December 2031st, 2023. Michael Bond, strategic advisor, Southampton Princess, $1,875 per hour, 1st of January 2023 to 30th April 2023. Pat Philip Fairn, strategic communications, $175 an hour, 3rd of January 2023 to the 31st of March 2023. Michael Reagan, global tax advisor, $450 an hour, 6th of January 2023 to the 30th of June 2023. Dewana Denwitty Burrows, licensing enforcement, $60 per hour, 27th of March 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. Terwan Lister, compliance, $70 an hour, 10th of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. Richline Woolridge, licensing enforcement, $60 an hour, 27th of March 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. Brent Lefkowitz, health disaster mentor trainee, $86.60 per hour, 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of December 2023. KPMG Universal Healthcare, $2,480 per day, 1st of January 2023 to the 30th of June 2023. Laura Marshall, Universal Healthcare, $83.72 per hour, 1st of January 2023 to the 30th of June 2023. Catherine Balfour Swain, legislative draft person, $100 per hour, 12th of February 2023 to the 30th of April 2023. Myron Simmons, counsel, $13,721.96 per month, 1st of April 2023 to 30th of June 2023. Laura Robinson, psychologist, Great British Pounds of $160 per hour, 160 pounds per hour, 1st of April 2023 to the 31st July 2023. National Security Contract Firefighters, $5,850.30 per month, 3rd of July 2022 to 1st of March 2023. Signed and the note from the head of public services saying the term has been extended. National Security, Renee Rock, investigator, $7,639. 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. Mika Trot, agricultural exhibition, $5,000 for the 1st of March 2023 to the 30th of April 2023. And Thomas Ogg, marine operations controller, $52.91 per hour, 8th of March 2023 to the 7th of June 2023.
Thank you, Premier. Supplementaries? No supplementary? Second question? Would you like to do your second question now?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Am I allowed to sort of abbreviate because the list could be even 3 times as long? My second question is wondering whether the Honorable Premier, the Minister of Finance, could just give us an indication of whether each one of those suppliers and contractors was a part of a full request for proposal for the consulting positions and the contracts that were listed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could I possibly, with your indulgence, for the information,
Members, I need to hear the Premier.
for the information of persons who are listening,
Uh-huh.
and just as a matter for a point of order, could I ask that you ask the honorable member to put the question that was actually submitted so that I may answer it?
Oh, yes. MP, you weren't doing a supplementary, right? You were doing your second question. Yeah, okay, can you read the second question out as printed? Yes.
Sure. Will the Honorable Premier and Minister of Finance please provide this Honorable House a list of each supplier or contractor invited to participate in each of the requests for proposal for the consulting positions and contracts listed in question 1?
Thank you. Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the head of the Public Service, question 2 cannot be answered. Consultants are not engaged following the request for proposal process. Consultants are engaged under financial instructions, section 10.5, procurement of goods and services, and works are governed by the Code of Practice for Project Management Procurement, the Code. Such procurement may include a request for proposal. The code refers to consultants at section 36, where it states that the requirements of financial instructions prevail. Financial instructions, section 10.5, clearly set out the requirements for the engagement of consultants. Many consultants which are engaged by public officers to fill roles temporarily. It sets out what a consultant is as defined in financial instructions, and I'm happy to refer the honorable member to page 38 of financial instructions in section 2.5, and I have a hard copy if the honorable member would like to view it afterwards.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was sufficient.
Okay, would you like to move on to your third question?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm wondering whether the Honorable Premier, Minister of Finance, will please provide this Honorable House the reasons why any unsuccessful applications were not selected for the positions or contracts listed in the answer to question 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the head of the Public Service, question 3 follows from question 2, and given the answer that I gave in question 2, the question cannot be answered.
Thank you.
Supplementary?
No supplementary.
Okay, thank you. Members, that concludes the written questions from MP Jackson to the Premier. We now have the third set of written questions, but they had sought written responses. And they were from the Deputy Opposition Leader. And I named it that, and that I'd like to acknowledge today that there was a request that as he's acting as leader today in the absence of the opposition leader, could he sit in the seat that is sitting there right now? And that was granted on my behalf if those are wondering why he's sitting there. But my question then, the Deputy Opposition Leader, do you have your responses for all 3 questions?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Speaker, and I've received the answers as requested.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, members. That brings us to a close of the written question period this morning. We'll now move on to the questions from statements that were given today. And the first statement that members have sought questions for is the statement from the Madam AG and the Deputy Opposition Leader. Would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Madam Attorney General please inform this Honorable House as it relates to the engagement question, or as it relates to industry engagement mentioned on page 11 of her statement? Could she describe the nature, type, and anticipated dates of engagement with the industry?
Madam AG.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The industry engagement is ongoing. The member, as a part of the industry, will have received the notifications from the sanctions unit on an ongoing basis, and I remain steadfast in my commitment to this unit, and they will provide the updates as they go along with the engagement. These are public notifications that all industry stakeholders receive.
Okay. Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Would the Honorable Attorney General be able to clarify if any further people or further stakeholders will be involved in the engagements going forward beyond the current industry group?
And Madam AG?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That will be determined by the unit, and if further stakeholders need to be engaged, they will be notified accordingly.
Further sub?
None, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second question?
No questions. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker.
No other subs? Good. Madam AG, also have questions from MP Pearman. MP Pearman, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honorable and Learned Minister for her presentation today and her statement to this House on Bermuda's financial sanctions response to Russia's unprovoked attack on the Ukraine. My first question arises from page 4 of her statement, and she identified that there would be general licenses issued in the UK and set out a number of criteria there at page 4 of her statement. And so she also confirmed elsewhere in her statement that 4 general licenses have been issued by her. I think that's at page 9. My question is, what was the nature or the general nature of the general licenses that have been issued from Bermuda or in respect to Bermuda?
Madam AG?
I've just lost my email. 1 second, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Give a moment for technical matters. Taking slow. There we go.
Apologies. I just want to highlight the one that's of note and importance to this country. The member will have noticed that it mentioned in my statement of the first one that was issued to Bermuda, and that was of a notable occasion, and that was in relation to, and I highlight this one in particular because it was a vessel's general license that was issued in October 2022, and this was issued providing regulation, provisional technical assistance, financial services and funds, and brokering services related to vessels. It was key in Bermuda because it enables reinsurance industry to provide where applicable reinsurance services and or coverage to UK-based insurance companies in respect of Russian vessels. It would take me all morning to highlight the details of the licenses, and what I can do for the member is to have my team provide that information. It's quite fulsome, and I'm happy to provide that if you wishes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary.
Yep, supplementary.
Yes, when the Honorable and Learned Minister was identifying the various grounds for the granting of general licenses at the top of page 5, one of the reasons given was to align the UK's approach closely with the approach of its allies. My supplementary is the harmonization by the UK, is that a softening of the UK's position or a hardening of the UK's position to align with its allies? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The position is fluctuating depending on the circumstances of the, I would say, sanctions environment, and it's not a static exercise.
Supplementary?
Yes, second supplementary.
Yes.
Thank you. Also, right there at top of page 5 of the statement, the minister said the sanction forum also provided participants information regarding potential general licenses that may be considered in future. Keeping it a very high level, Minister, what sort of general licenses might potentially be granted in the future that differ from the ones you've identified?
AG?
Once again, Mr. Speaker, they're particular to the circumstances that arise, and as they are put in the public domain, the member will be notified accordingly. So without going into granular detail, I think that's the best I can provide of it this morning.
Moving then to my second
question?
question. Yes, thank you. And this arises at page 2 of your statement, where you indicated that the forum was looking into how licenses are being used and understanding the various legal structures. Are you aware of any misuse of licenses or occurrences of misuse of licenses that have been granted for Bermuda?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not aware of any misuse at this time.
Supplementary?
No supplementary. My third question,
Third
please,
question,
Mr.
yes.
Speaker. Yes, and this is at page 11 of your statement, please, Honorable and Learned Minister, where you refer to the frozen assets totaling, and I believe these to be Bermuda frozen assets, totaling over $219 million of frozen assets. Again, keeping the question at a very high level, I don't need specifics, but could you give us a flavor of where those freezings have occurred? You know, are those bank accounts held, or are those ships frozen, et cetera? Again, keeping it generic and at a high level.
Yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer without the detail that's associated with that particular question. It's actually quite multifaceted, and it is related to the different sanctions that are issued in relation to different designated persons. And so it's almost impossible for me to answer that question without getting detailed information from both Government House UK and my sanctions team. But I'm happy to provide that information if I can to the member.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary. Given the considerable sum that's been frozen, and my compliments on $219 million of Russian assets being frozen, does the honorable minister figure that that really is the lump of it that would be present or related to Bermuda, or does the honorable minister feel that there are more assets out there that might still be frozen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an ongoing exercise, and I can guarantee that if I was back in this House in 6 months, that figure would actually likely to be increased.
No supplementaries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the honorable minister.
Thank you. AG, that's the end of questions for you from your statement this morning. We'll now move on. Minister Works, there are members who wish to put questions to you in regard to your statement this morning. The first is in the name of the of MP Cannoneer.
Yes, thank you,
The
Mr. Speaker.
Shadow Minister?
Yes, two quick questions. On page 2, the honorable member speaks of the Front Street wastewater treatment plant and how I don't know if it's new filters or more filters or the likes to help with the situation we're having on South Shore with the grease balls. Just curious, are we doing better there? Have we gotten more reports of grease balls on South Shore or less? Is the filtration system with the filters working any better for us?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think we're doing better in terms of grease balls, but there still is a level of concern that the work that is carried out at the waste, it's not really a waste treatment plant, it's a waste pumping station on Front Street, does not actually treat the waste. And so we're still pumping raw waste into the ocean, which is the biggest challenge.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary.
Yes.
Does the honorable minister, or is the honorable minister considering an extension of the pipe off the South Shore?
Mr. Speaker, that's a matter for the Corporation of Hamilton, and to be perfectly honest, they've not been cooperative in terms of joining with us to address the water and wastewater situation in the country. They have an opposite view to ours in terms of our ability to address it, and have expressed so. I did at one stage refuse to allow the expansion of the works at the pumping station based on the advice of our own water and wastewater engineer, that there were other steps they could have taken at a bit more cost, but it would have at least contributed some effort to treating the waste as opposed to just pumping it. I have since approved some improvements there, but it still does not meet the standard that would be acceptable internationally.
Supplementary?
Second supplementary, yes. Thank you for that answer, honorable minister. Thank you for that answer, honorable minister. Has the potential expansion of the pipe, is that something that's been costed? And do you if it has, do you know the cost?
I don't think it's been costed. I'm not aware. And I've not seen any of those indications in the resolutions that have been presented to me for approval.
Supplementary?
No, thank you.
No? Okay. MP Canada, do you have any further questions?
Second question.
Second question, yes.
Yes, thank you. Second question. On page 3, the minister speaks of localized private tank water and being able to ensure that, well, not just private homes, but restaurants and the likes are providing good potable water to residents. I was just curious. I know back some time ago there was talk about having home test kits because on page 3 the minister speaks of the only way really that we're getting it tested is you got to bring it into the department to have your water tested. has there been any looks, especially with the consultant involved, at potentially getting a home test kit that one could purchase for the water?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, there has been some conversations amongst the consultant and our technical officers in the first public consultation. And so it'll be considered when we get to the end of the second consultation.
Any further question? No, supplementary?
Supplementary, yes, Mr. Speaker. Can the minister please provide an update on the operational capability and storage as we head into the dry summer months of all the government water producing sites? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, that's a wide question, but I'll say this. Certainly the ability to produce and store water has improved significantly, particularly at Southside. One of the challenges there was that the tanks had not been all serviced and were in good order. That has been corrected in anticipation of bringing on a new reverse osmosis plant at Southside, which is the new plant is currently being commissioned. So the ability to provide additional water in the country has improved. There should also be shortly an installation of a new water truckers outlet from Southside. So I think we're in very good shape. I will say that the deliberations and consultation with the private truckers as well as the other pipe water supplier have been very productive and not adversarial in any way, shape, or form. And so I expect that we will get out of this exercise a real clear steer of where we need to go in order to be able to make improvements to our water system. For anybody that served in this role as the Minister of Public Works, they would have met the one person on the planet who I think gets the most excited about water and waste treatment, and that's the principal water engineer, Mr. J. Tarek Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary? There are none? Thank you, Minister. Those are the only questions for you this morning. We'll now move on to the next statement with questions, and that is for the Minister of Tourism. Minister of Tourism, MP Cannonier would like to put questions to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Considering the tourism's been a bit of a, can sometimes be a bit of a football, and I know it's difficult as we're trying to look at getting our tourism product off the ground. As I went through the statement, especially on the first opening page, I was curious as to how can we give Bermuda a better idea. It starts on the first sentence. It says that we've reported incremental growth, which doesn't make it sound like it's substantive. But then when you look at the percentages, they are substantive. So I was wondering if maybe the minister at some point in time, maybe what he could do is present, even if it's just to myself, a more realistic apples to apples figures. So the first quarter of 2023 and compared to the first quarter of 2019, and both of those quarters represent without having COVID restrictions. And so we'll have a better idea and we can give advice and listen to some of the ideas more critically as to what we are doing going forward with tourism.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we understand that coming out of years such as a pandemic that are affected by a pandemic, you're going to have some strange looking percentages when you compare year over year. But they are reflecting improvement. and the public should know about that. I do agree with the shadow minister that they do distort things, and we will endeavor to provide and have that discussion that he requested to compare. And I will say that a lot of the measures, when compared to 2019, are closing the gap, and in some instances have, when you talk about length of stay, have surpassed what we were experiencing in 2019 for the comparative period. So I would commit to meet with my shadow from the opposition and have that discussion that he requested.
Supplementary?
No, second question.
Second question, go right ahead.
Thank you, Minister. Yeah, on the bottom of the, let me make sure I get the page right. The second page, considering that the honorable member mentions tracking of economic impact from super yachts, and I was looking at some of the islands, and one of them that really stood out was Cayman Islands. Their first quarter, they have a surplus of $231 million. And part of that was tourism, super yachts included in we're seeing a vast increase. So I'm appreciative of the fact that we have changed or expanded on the very last paragraph, we've expanded our tracking of yachts and said that we would include all yachts. Could the minister give us an idea when he says all yachts, what that encompasses?
Minister?
Just give me 1 second, Mr. Speaker. I do have that data available. As far as the size of yachts that we're talking about. We're talking about yachts from 24 meters up to 148 feet and above.
Supplementary?
Yeah, supplemental. Yeah, the reason I was asking the question, because if you follow into the next page, comparing the quarters, we increased it by three yachts, and that's why I was trying to understand with the expansion, maybe we would have seen more arrivals in the first quarter. So can the minister attest to when on the top of this following page, it mentions that it was a recorded value of 1.72 million of money that was received in 164% increase. And I don't recall what it was for the 22, or even if he ever gave those figures. Do you know of the figures by any chance for the 22 yachts as opposed to the 25?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that figure is $651,370.
Okay. Second question? You've had both your supplementaries. Do you want to put a second question? No? Okay. MP, sorry, Minister, you also have another MP who would like to put questions to you. MP Jackson, would you still wish to put question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have one question. On page 1, the minister was just listing the biggest contributors to our air arrivals and listed that the leisure visitor was the largest. And then secondly was the business visitor. And I'm just curious, is that visitor number increasing or has it decreased from previous years?
Minister?
I'm not sure what she means by visitor number increasing. Can she specify, be more specific?
Just clarify your question for the member, for the minister.
Yes. So the minister had quoted on page 1 that 28% of the total air arrivals were business travelers. And I'm just curious whether that 28% is that we're seeing business air arrivals rising, or are we seeing business air arrivals falling?
Is it a decrease or an increase of a previous?
We're talking specifically about business arrivals. Just give me 1 second. We're talking about the business component of air arrivals. Just give me 1 second, Mr.
Sure,
Speaker.
no
I have
problem.
that here. Okay, for so I don't have it broken down as percentage. I just have it as the raw numbers.
Okay.
I will endeavor to get it as a percentage for the honorable member.
You satisfied that? The minister said he'll seek to get a clarification for you. And your
Yes.
clarification was basically, is it 25, not 25,
28%.
28%? Is it a increase or decrease of a previous quarter?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So he'll seek to get that for you. You had a second question?
No further questions.
Okay. Minister, that's the end of questions for you on your matter this morning.
Thank
on
you,
that
Mr. Speaker.
statement. The next statement that has questions this morning is from the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister, the Deputy Opposition Leader would like to put a question to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just bear with me while I find this note. There it is. With the Honorable Minister, I note that in his ministerial statement on page 2, that the employment income in the fourth quarter was 7.3% above 2021. However, in the balance of his statement referring to economic statistics, he compared them to 2022. My question is, why is this one statistic compared to 2021 instead of 2022? Thank you.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the fourth quarter is the fourth quarter of 2022. So in order to compare it to the fourth quarter of the previous year, it must be compared to 2021.
Supplementary?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Second
Second question, yep.
Thank you. I note in the minister's statement on page 3, he refers to total business registrations increased 0.8% year over year, bringing the complete business register to 16,103. He further notes 132 new businesses registered. What's the source of this information? Is he referring to the registrar of companies?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, all data that was supported from the Bermuda Government Department of Statistics. Is he asking, if it's asking, where was the primary data obtained from? It would be the Register of Companies.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Minister. Obviously, the Registrar of Companies registers incorporated bodies, so not all incorporated bodies in that number, 16,000, would in fact be businesses. Is the Honorable Minister able to clarify what of these 16,000 or 132 are actual businesses versus other structures such as asset holding companies?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the breakdown of the total new registrations are as follows. 46 will be local, 72 will be exempt, 14 are exempt partnership.
Okay. Supplementary or third question?
The Honorable Minister could repeat the third number that he said.
That's just a clarification.
Sorry, a clarification, Mr. Speaker. He said 46 local, 72 exempt.
And the third grouping was what you're at? Did you hear
Exempt
it?
partnership was 14, Mr.
14.
Speaker.
Okay. Now, do you have a second question or a supplementary or your third question?
Supplemental. So, for example, local companies can be used to house assets like houses and things like that. Exempt companies, the same thing. So my question is a repeat. Of the 132, how many of these are actual businesses?
Mr. Speaker, they are all actual businesses which are registered in Bermuda.
That's your second supplementary. Do you want to do the third question?
No, that's fine. That's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My third question,
Mhm.
sorry, here we go. On the minister's statement on page 4, he refers to the economic development strategy. Could he explain the difference between the economic development strategy and the currently published and in operation economic recovery plan?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, it's the aim to table the economic development strategy in this honorable house on June 16th. The economic development strategy will contain 5 priority areas. Number 1, local business retention and expansion. Number 2, we talk about marketing and attraction of Bermuda as a business jurisdiction, as well as attracting foreign investment. Number 3 will contain entrepreneurship and small business development. Number 4 will be continued execution of economic recovery plan items. And number 5 will be focused on people. And so the economic development strategy is broader than just the economic recovery plan, but will contain the continued execution of the economic recovery plan.
Supplementary?
None. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable
Okay.
Minister.
All right, Minister, that brings a close to questions for your statement this morning. Thank you, members. The next statement that has questions this morning is for the Minister of Social Development and Seniors. Minister MP Kennedy, we'd like to put a question to you this morning.
Which one are we on?
The foster care.
I guess my, have we seen, Honorable Member, and thank you for this information. It tends to be very emotive, quite frankly, for some of us when we look at this. And having also myself had a foster child many, many moons ago. Have we seen a decline in folks willing to take on this, what I would say, honorable move of taking in foster cares? And how is that impacting the department in and of itself if it is declining?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleague for asking that question. There has not been a decline. However, currently we are in need of foster families, particularly in the cases of emergencies. And so we're just wanting to increase our repertoire of foster families who can help, particularly when we do have emergencies. Ms. Salinas Simons had mentioned that there are about 10 children currently who are still receiving services through family preservation, but could potentially have foster parents utilize, but they're still being followed by the Department of Child and Family Services through family preservation.
Supplementary? Yes.
Supplemental. So as far as financially, it's not a burden and human resource, really, that, no. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, okay. All right. No further questions? Okay. MP Jackson, would you still wish to put your question?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to thank the minister. This is kinship training. It sounds to be a very good thing for our community and certainly healthy for the young people. But I just had a question about the training. Can the minister just give us an indication of whether there's any specific training or support for kinship parents who may be older siblings or who may be senior citizens who are at the grandparent stage that are fostering family members?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the kinship training was for anyone who would foster a child who is a relative, and that would include a senior as well as a older sibling as well. So it didn't discriminate on who that was. It was inclusive of all kinship relationships. But there's also further training, Mr. Speaker. There is all foster parents can also engage in foster care college training that we offer to any foster parent at any time. They can engage with that particular training.
Supplementary?
No supplementary.
question?
Second
Go
question.
ahead.
Are we seeing, I'd like to ask the minister, are we seeing growth in the kinship parenting sector of foster parenting?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we did report this information and data in our PQIs, but the kinship placements, depending on the year, I'll give an example. So for 2022, end year of 2022, we had kinship placements of 26. And to date, January of March 2023, we have kinship placements of 15. So there's been a decrease.
Supplementary?
No, I have a third question.
Third question, go right here.
And just a simple, because I'm not sure, but even with kinship placements, do they still fall under the formal foster parenting framework? And that would include whether they receive the financial support and access to services, et cetera, the same as foster parents would. And then also whether there's oversight similar to any oversights that may exist with foster parents that are not related.
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. It doesn't matter whether or not the foster care placement is traditional, kinship, or therapeutic. There is still the same level of oversight. Oversight and financial doesn't change.
Okay. Supplementary? No? Okay. Minister, that's the end of questions for that statement. However, your second statement also has questions. MP Kennedy, would you like to put your question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just, first of all, would like to thank the minister because I believe that she's doing some good work here. I was on a committee with the Honorable Zane Silva, especially in this particular area where we had SCARS trainings and the likes, and this has become a rather emotive topic over the last couple of months, that you can see what's happening with young kids being taken advantage of. So on page 2, the honorable member speaks of this committee and group, and she speaks of also the support, and I recognize that the Attorney General has been very supportive in this area, having had conversations with her as well. But she mentions the National Child Safeguarding Committee and who it comprises of. And it's great to see this, but one of the areas that was identified many years ago as a loophole was the reporting with early childhood education and picking up on cues that this committee should be collating information from. But at the same time, if we look in the paper and look at many of the atrocities towards kids, we notice that churches, and I feel that we should be requiring churches to be involved in this, because many times people go to churches are seeking out assistance and help, but not really getting the full help that they should. So in these conversations, has it been discussed with some of these ancillary organizations like churches and the likes, that we're getting out to them as well to help safeguard against this? Because some of these predators are lurking in these places freely.
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the policy, if honorable members do take the time to read it, there is an area which is noted in aims and objectives, which is on page 5, which speaks to strengthening the community protection framework, point 2.23, and the area in which my honorable colleague speaks of is definitely addressed in C, D, and E.
Supplementary?
Yes, just supplemental. Has there been any consideration, and I haven't read it, maybe it's there, to requiring that pastors of churches have SCARS training?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, no, not to date. There hasn't been a requirement or mandate, but we would encourage parents, if you're have your children in programs, that you're making sure that persons are properly trained. SCARS.
Further questions? No? Thank you. Members, that brings us to a close of the question period for this morning, almost right on the 60-minute clock. And we thank all members for their participation. And now we'll move on. The next item on the order paper will be the congratulatory and obituary speeches. Let me just adjust the clock here so that we can be. Oops. Would any member wish, Premier, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning and I will ask that all members of this Honorable House be associated, and I'll ask this Honorable House to please send a letter of condolences to the family of the late Marco Warren,
Yes.
to his family, to the Pembroke Hamilton Club family, to the Bermuda Football Association family, to the Youth Sport and Recreation family, and to the Paget Primary family, in memory and thought of all those in our community who are mourning his tragic death. Marco was a stellar athlete. He was also a stellar person. He was a father. He was a family man. He loved his community, and anyone that knew him knew how and the fact that he did put his family first. Certainly, Mr. Speaker, as a father, I cannot fathom what his parents are feeling during this incredible time of loss. The outpouring of grief has been wide, and I want them to know that they are certainly in the thoughts of the members of this House and the country. Mr. Speaker, the last time I had an opportunity to speak to Marco was when I had gone to see your exhibit, actually, at the Paget Primary School. Marco ran the after-school program at Paget Primary, and I, of course, had got to know Marco through his work with football. And I remember having a conversation. I was about to leave, did see him just getting off his bike. I hadn't seen him for a little bit. I went over to talk to him, asked how he was doing. He had told me that he'd just become a father. I know that he was talking about how he could advance. I know that he was speaking to, enter the next round of fire service recruits and other things. He was an amazingly talented Bermudian, a kind Bermudian, a soft-spoken Bermudian, and a wonderful Bermudian, Mr. Speaker. His loss is being felt. Of course, I'm sure that in the later portions of our session today, there'll be more discussion over the need for persons to do what is right and to make sure that they say something about this. But this time, I just want to make sure that his family, all the families that are mourning regarding this situation, know that their thoughts are with the honorable members of this House, and that this House will send a letter of condolence to his family on the loss of truly stellar and wonderful, caring young Bermudian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Is there any other member? MP Ming, you have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and listening audience. I start my comments today on a very sad note. In St. George's, we lost a legend of a babysitter, Miss Angela Minus, to us just known as Aunt Angie. I'm associate MP Figo and MP Cannoner with the comments. Probably about 5 babysitters back in the day, Mr. Speaker, and if you came from up in St. George's, you went to one of them. I didn't go to Aunt Angie, I got Miss Ho, but Aunt Angie's babysitting place was near where my granny used to watch us after school. So we often went up there to her and our Aunt Arlene as one of the non-paying children, but didn't matter to her. She included us in everything. She knew we would be there in the afternoon for snacks. And she had, up until probably, I think about 1 year ago, she was still taking on children and doing her part within the community of the village. She was married to her husband for 54 years. It's more years than I'm actually been here, Mr. Speaker. And we know that she will be missed in our community, not just for what she gave in terms of childcare, but what she gave to the community as well. No event could happen if she wouldn't bake something for you, just bring something. She didn't even sign up to do it. She would just come by and say, oh, I made you a gingerbread, or dropping off some cookies or whatever. And at this time, I can tell you that St. George's is truly reeling and trying to grapple with the understanding of her death and the many others that we've actually heard for this year. And I just want her family to know that they're in our thoughts and prayers at this time. On a happier note, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to congratulate a young lady by the name of Andera Critchlow. And for those of you that have seen the movie Queen Cleopatra, she was the very young lady who played Cleopatra's sister. She is a Bermudian and a proud one at that. And as a woman, I'm extremely proud to acknowledge her accomplishments. And I associate MP Fogo with my comments, associate the women in the House of Assembly, Mr. Speaker.
And the man.
And the man, I'm sorry, but the women are the ones speaking up. We'll associate all of us.
Yes.
And we hope that this is just the start of a great and wonderful career in film for this young lady. Just want to say that her family was here from St. George's. And it's my last minutes. I'd like to
30 seconds.
congratulate the new administration within the Corporation of St. George's. You have Mayor Cornell Francis. You have, excuse me, under the residential voters, Yari Ming, Garen Derlin, Elizabeth Christopher, Tiana Butterfield, Alan Van Putten, and Clarky Trott. And under business ratepayer, we have Emne Ossaran and Alfonso Harris. We wish them all the best.
Thank you. Right on your 3-minute clock. Minister Ferbert, I see you rise to your feet. Would you like your 3 minutes?
Yes, thank you,
Go right
Mr.
ahead.
Speaker. I do want to take the opportunity to give congratulatory remarks to all the primary and middle school students, public and private, who would have participated in Spring Into the Arts. I believe it is still ongoing. And I had the opportunity to attend. It was actually great to see our children be able to come together in that forum to display their talents and have such great joy to be able to come together post-COVID, to be able to share this artistic talent that they had with the community. And it has been very well received through our community with no seat. You couldn't find any seats. So I just want to say thank you to all the community, the parents who continue to support our children, and congratulations to all the children who participated, and the Ministry of Education, Department of Education, who also helped to put Spring Into the Arts on. Well done. It was, from what I saw, it was a amazing event. I also want to take this time to congratulate all the graduates of Bermuda College, and I can associate the whole house with that. They had their graduation ceremony yesterday. I did not have the opportunity to attend the daytime graduation ceremony, but I did have the opportunity to attend the PACE Division Annual Awards Ceremony. And what's great about the PACE program is that it gives the opportunity for mature students, but not just mature students, but the opportunity for them to develop and improve upon, skill and education. So I want to give say congratulatory remarks to all of the persons who received awards and certifications yesterday. Congratulations to you. And I want to particularly identify a new program that was put on by PACE, who had the largest cohort, and that is all the students who participated in the Certificate for Intellectual Disability. I just want to say a special congratulations to you in putting your foot forward in understanding and wanting to make improvements and work in the field of intellectual disability. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. MP Fogo.
Yes, thank
Would
you,
you like
Mr.
your 3 minutes?
Thank you.
Go
I
right
don't know
ahead.
if I'll be 3 minutes, but I know it'll take us to 12:30.
All right.
Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I didn't stand and provide condolences to the Miners family, Miners Collington family. And I have already been associated with the remarks for Angela Miners, but I still needed to stand to my feet to speak. Ms. Miners did fill a very needed niche in the community of St. George's with her care services for very young ones up to the age of 3 and 4 before they entered preschool or elementary school. And I can tell you it's been decades that she indeed has been in that service, taking care of most of my family members, including my some of my younger grandchildren. She was a care provider for them. And indeed, her last few children that she did care for the last 3 or 4 years, have all been family members. Angie will be greatly missed in the community of St. George's, and even more so in the Salvation Army community of St. George's, where she spent many, many years. Mr. Speaker, I do need to provide congratulatory remarks to the new corporation of St. George's, to the new councilors. And of course, I have an extreme bias given Dr. Asairon is my daughter, and I want to say specifically of her, I know she is a very much an ideas person, and she's always coming up with all sorts of novel ideas, and the ratepayers in St. George's will greatly benefit from her input on their behalf. But indeed, anyone who's in public service knows what a daunting task that is. And so to all of the new councilors under the mayor of Pinal, Francis, I do say congratulations. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I will take my seat.
Thank you. Mr. Rip, I see your eyes. Would you like your 3 minutes?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to be associated with the condolences already asked for the family of Marco Warren, but I specifically wanted to say condolences myself. I didn't personally get to know Marco, but I did actually meet him the last league game that PHC played at Boulevard this season, and I found him to be a very, very pleasant young man. I more associate myself with his father, who during my football administration years, I had a lot of time with him, and we talked to his. I know him best basically as Payback Warren. I never even remembered his first name, and I didn't know Marco was his son, but I certainly want to send condolences to the family. Mr. Speaker, on a more pleasant note, despite the clouds surrounding the PHC at this time, I do want to send congratulations to the youth coaches of PHC, because they've had a fairly successful season, especially with the under sevens, the under 7 Blacks, who went undefeated this whole season, actually won the BFA tournament and the annual Kappa Classic, and they were coached by Mr. Eddie Doling. And another one of their youth teams, the PHC under 9 Blacks, won the pre-Kappa tournament, which is held in September of last year, but came second runners-up in the BFA tournament and won the Kappa tournament in April this year. And that team was coached by Stephen Trott. So I certainly feel that there is some promise amongst the PHC in the future, and certainly want to congratulate them. And I'm just reminded that Marco Warren's father is actually named Dwight Warren. So
Yes.
thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Premier or Deputy Mr. Premier, would you be honest?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House to now adjourn for lunch to come back at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Members, are there any objections to that? There are none. The House now stands adjourned until 2 p.m.